Hello, welcome to the first episode of the season of Belongs to the Shadows. I'm your host, Jaime Bennett. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. I'm going to be talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre on today's show. This is not the Halloween episode. I am going to be doing a Halloween episode for Halloween. Viewer discretion will be strongly advised for that one and for every single one of these episodes because I talk about horror movies. I talk about scary hauntings. I talk about anything that is creepy and spooky and haunted history and ghosts and all of that. I'm not wearing makeup right now. I just got done recording an episode of the Dark Glitter Sessions, which you will see at 5 o'clock today. But by the time you are watching this, it will have already aired. But you can always watch the replay on YouTube as well as Star Raven Studios YouTube page. Star Raven Studios Facebook group and Cosmos Creative Television Facebook group. This is the first episode that belongs to the Shadows for the season, and I wanted to do the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It says in the description at the beginning of the movie that this is based on real life events. I want to explore that some more. And I want to explore the person that they based the events on, supposedly. So I'm going to be talking about that story as well as Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I have to be honest, I have only seen a little bit of that movie. I need to go and watch it. I've never really been a fan of that type of movie, but it's not to say that I won't become a fan of that type of movie. If you like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, then this episode is for you, that's for sure. I like to explore horror movies. I like to explore supernatural stuff on this show. I like to explore like anything creepy and spooky, and I especially love haunted history. If you like this show, then please like and subscribe to my channel. I will be trying to do more episodes of this show. I'm going to have the Halloween episode exclusively on Star Raven Studios YouTube page as well as my Facebook page. There is Star Raven Studios group. I will put that in the description below so that you can find Star Raven Studios. We do have merchandise. I'm very excited about Star Raven Studios. It's a passion project. For those of you who do not know, I do have my degree in the communication industry, emphasis in recording technologies. So I am all about that type of stuff. I love haunted history and I love doing this show. So we're going to have exclusive episodes for Star Raven Studios YouTube page and my network. This, of course, can be seen on Cosmos Creative Television, and you can always go back and watch some of the older episodes on Cosmos Creative Television. I'm sorry if this video is blurry. I apologize. I really need to get better equipment. If you can think of anybody who wants to sponsor a show, I would love that. Not necessary, and tips are not necessary, but I will put my PayPal down below. If you feel inclined to leave a tip, that would be greatly appreciated because it will go back into this show, and it will go back into me being able to bring you high quality programming. So yeah, there's that. Let's get into Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like I said, I have not seen much of this movie, and there is numerous versions of this movie, numerous Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. So if I say anything incorrectly, I apologize. Like I said, I am not a huge fan of this movie line, but it's not to say that it's not a really good movie line. If you are a huge fan of this movie, That is awesome. I hope that I do it justice talking about it today, not having had seen the movie, but I want to give full disclosure and tell you all that I have not seen it. But I know that a lot of people are a huge fan of Leatherface, and I wanted to make sure to bring an episode representing that fan base and covering Leatherface and Texas Chainsaw Massacre for you all, because I don't want to just focus on the movies and stories that I'm a fan of. I want to try to cover everybody's movies that they like. So, and as well as ghost stories and haunted history. So the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it says that it's 19. They have 1974 one, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which came out in 1986. Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1990. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I can't read that because I don't have my glasses on, but there's another one that came out in 1995. All American Massacre 2000, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I guess, or remake, 2003. So let's tell you about this. And of course, good old Wikipedia comes into play again. I always like to go to Wikipedia, especially if I do not know about a certain subject. I feel like I can get reliable information there from you. So this is on wikipedia.org/wiki/the_Texas_chain_saw_massacre. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a 1974 American horror film produced, co-composed, and directed by Tobe Hooper, who co-wrote it with Kim Hinkle. The film stars Marilyn Burns, Paul A. Partan, Edwin Neal, Jim Sydow, and Gunnar Hansen. The plot follows a group of friends who fall victim to a family of cannibals while on their way to visit an old homestead. The film was marketed as being based on true events to attract a wider audience and to act as a subtle. I tell you, I cannot pronounce things today. I apologize, but we all know I'm infamous for mispronouncing things, so there you go. Subtle commentary, I'll get it out eventually, on the era's political climate. Although the character of Leatherface and minor story details were inspired by the crimes and murder of Ed Gein, its plot is largely fictional. I will be talking about Ed Gein. I have his Wikipedia page pulled up because I wanted to explore that. I know a lot of you that will be watching this. Obviously, you're watching it because you're a fan of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre as well as a fan of Leatherface. I know that Leatherface is very, very popular. I myself am a fan of Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, and Ghostface. Those are my favorite horror film characters, but I wanted to include everybody, and I wanted to talk about Leatherface. Like I said, hopefully I do Leatherface and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre line of movies justice. I will sit down and try to watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre after this show, because I feel that it's only fair to do that. And maybe I will see the appeal and become a huge fan of the movie line myself. Hooper produced the film for less than $140,000. $800,000 adjusted for inflation, and used a cast of relatively unknown actors drawn mainly from Central Texas, where the film was shot. The limited budget forced Hooper to film for long hours, 7 days a week, so that he could finish as quickly as possible and reduce equipment rental costs. Due to the film's violent content, Hooper struggled to find a distributor, but it was eventually acquired by the Bryanston Distributing Company. company. Disturbing. Yes, disturbing. Distributing company. I tell you, I need to wear glasses, but I don't want to admit that I'm getting older and that I need glasses because, well, I just don't want to do that. No, thank you. Hooper limited the quantity of on-screen gore in hopes of securing a PG rating. Wow. Wow, I did not know that. That is interesting. But the Motion Picture Association of America, MPAA, rated it R. The film faced similar difficulties internationally, being banned in several countries, and numerous theaters stopped showing the film in response to complaints about its violence. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre was released in the United States on October 11th of 1974. While the film initially received mixed reception from critics, it was highly profitable, grossing over $30 million. Wow. At the domestic box office, equivalent with roughly over 150.8 million as of 2019, selling over 16.5 million tickets in 1974. That is incredible. It has since gained a reputation as one of the best and most influential horror films. It is credited with originating several elements common in the slasher genre, including the use of power tools as murder weapons, the characterization of killer as a huge, large hulking masked figure, in the killing of victims. It has led to a franchise that continued the story of Leatherface and his family through sequels, prequels, and remake, comic books, and video games. Yes. Yeah. It is a franchise, and wow, that's incredible. The plot of this is in the early hours of August 18th, which happens to be my mom's birthday, of 1973, a grave robber steals several remains from a cemetery, New Newt, Morito County, Texas. The robber ties a rotting corpse and other body parts onto a monument, creating a grisly display, which is discovered by a local resident as the sun rises. Driving in a van, 5 young people take a road trip. That's a great start of any horror film right there. 5 young people take a road trip through the area. Sally Hardesty, Jerry, Pam, Kirk, and Sally's handicapped brother, Franklin. They stopped at the cemetery to check on the grave of Sally and Franklin's grandfather, which appears undisturbed, as the group drives past a slaughterhouse. Gotta have the slaughterhouse in there. Franklin recounts the Hardesty family's history with animal slaughter. They pick up a hitchhiker. Red flag right there. Red flag. It's like running upstairs to get away from the murderer, who says that his own family also has experience with animal slaughter. When the group refuses to pay the hitchhiker for a photograph, he attacks Franklin and smears a bloody symbol on the side of the van as he is ejected. Low on gas, the van stops at a station whose proprietor says that no fuel is available. The group explores a nearby abandoned house owned by the Hardesty family. Kirk and Pam then leave the others behind, planning to go swimming because, after something like that happens, you gotta go swimming, right? That's the thing to do. They discover another nearby house running gas-powered generators. Hoping to barter for gas, Kirk enters the house. A large man wearing a mask of skin, Leatherface, attacks Kirk with a hammer, killing him. When Pam enters the house, she finds its living room strewn with human and animal bones. The man grabs her and impales her on a metal hook and starts up a gas-powered chainsaw to dismember Kirk's body as Pam watches. In the evening, Jerry searches for Pam and Kirk. When he enters the other house, he finds Pam's nearly dead, spasming body in a chest freezer. The masked man kills Jerry with a hammer. And then it goes on and on and on. I'm not going to read the whole synopsis for you all. If you're watching this, 9 chances out of 10, you know what it's about and you've watched it. The concept for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre arose in the early 1970s while Tobe Hooper was working as an assistant film director at the University of Texas at Austin and as a documentary cameraman. That's interesting. That makes for a good horror film director or creator. Right there, documentary. He had already developed a story involving the elements of isolation, the woods, and darkness. He accredited the graphic coverage of violence by San Antonio news outlets as one inspiration for the film and based elements of the plot on murderer Ed Gein or Gene. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. It's Gein. So I would say Gein, who committed his crimes in the 1950s in Wisconsin. Gein inspired other horror films such as Psycho and The Silence of the Lambs. During development, Hooper used the working titles of Head Cheese and Leatherface. There's more. You can read more about it here. So yeah. And like I said, you can find this on wikipedia.org, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, of course. I'm going to close that out for you all because I want to talk about Ed Gein or Ed Gein. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it. Hopefully I'm doing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie justice here. I'm sorry I have not watched it. It's not to say that I won't be a fan of it once I do watch it. I just have not gotten around to watching that, but I didn't want to leave that movie or Leatherface out of, out of the show. I wanted to talk about them. So Ed Gein, and this is on Wikipedia, good old Wikipedia. That's where I always go. This show is not sponsored by Wikipedia, but I just like going there for my information. Edward Theodore Gein was born August 27th. What is it with August? 1906. And he lived until July 26th of 1984. Also known as the Butcher of Plainfield or the Plainfield Ghoul. Was an American murderer, suspected serial killer, and body snatcher. Gein's crimes, it's Gaines. Okay. Committed around his hometown of Plainfield, Wisconsin, gathered widespread notoriety in 1957 after authorities discovered that he had exhumed corpses from local graveyards and fashioned keepsakes from their bones and skin. He also confessed to killing 2 women, tavern owner Mary Hogan in 1954 and hardware store owner Bernice Warden in 1957. Gein was initially found unfit to stand trial and confined to a mental health facility by 1968. He was judged competent to stand trial. He was found guilty of the murder of Warden, but he was found legally insane and was remanded to a psychiatric institution. Gein died at Mendota Mental Health Institute from respiratory failure resulting from lung cancer on July 6, 1984. He was 77 years old. He is buried next to his family in the Plainfield Cemetery in a now unmarked grave. Wonder why it's unmarked. Because there's a lot of sickos out there who would probably do something crazy. Yeah, we're not going to go too much more into that theory or thought process. His childhood, Edward Theodore Gein was born in La Crosse, Wisconsin on August 27th of 1906. The second of 2 boys, George Philip Gein and Augusta Wilhelmine Gein. Gein had an older brother named Henry Augusta, who was fervently religious and nominally Lutheran. Frequently preached to her sons about the innate immorality of the world. Innate immorality of the world. I will get it right eventually. I'm going on no sleep here. Well, very little sleep. I did finally get sleep last night. Innate immorality of the world, the evil of drinking, and her belief that all women, apart from herself, were naturally promiscuous and instruments of the devil. She reserved time every afternoon to read to them from the Bible, usually selecting verses from the Old Testament and the book of Revelation concerning death, murder, and divine retribution. Augustus Augusta hated her husband. He was an alcoholic who was unable to keep a job. He had worked at various times as a carpenter, tanner, and insurance salesman. That seems like the start of another horror film right there. An insurance salesman. Sorry. During the time in La Crosse, Gaines' father owned a local grocery shop, but he soon sold the business and left city with his family to live in isolation on a 155-acre farm in the town of Plainville, Wisconsin, which became their permanent residence. Augusta took advantage of the farm's isolation by turning away outsiders who have influenced her sons. Wow. Yeah. Let's unpack that. Or let's not. You can draw your own conclusions from that. On April 1st, 1940, Gaines' father died of heart failure caused by his alcoholism at the age of 66. Ed and his brother Henry began doing odd jobs around town to help cover living expenses. How horrible would that be to be like isolated? I'm not trying to pass judgment here, but to be in a religion, a home that's based on religion like that, to be isolated and to have the mom like kind of shove her religion down her son's throat, basically. I don't want to say much more about that because I don't want to offend anybody. You believe whatever you believe. And this is not a religious show, but that would really dampen somebody's spirits right there, to be isolated, to be a young man, to have his mom shove her religious beliefs down his throat, and his father being the way that his father was. Like, it's no wonder that, his mentality was not coherent. It's a wonder that, he ended up the way he did. That's really, 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 really sad. And you can read the rest of the story on Wikipedia. I'm not going to read it all to you because I don't want to bore you all. But like I said, I wanted to bring you all like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre because I know a lot of you are huge fans of Leatherface, and I have to be honest. Full disclosure, I don't know about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, I get the general gist of the plot, and I get the general gist of the character Leatherface. And the film was marketed as being based on true events to attract a wider audience, and to act as a subtle commentary on the era's political climate, although the character of Leatherface and minor story details were inspired by Ed Gein. Its plot is largely fictional. Yeah, I mean, you can go back and look at crime stories and, they will sound like a horror film, and that's where a lot of directors get their ideas for horror films. And it's really sad. I mean, it's sad that there is things that happen like that in the world. They're sad that things, grotesque, horrible crimes happen. It's really sad that I can't walk walk near my house at night because you never know what's gonna happen. It's whew. But I grew up in the 1980s with the characters such as Leatherface and Chucky and Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger. Freddy Krueger is personally one of my favorite storylines. I don't do a whole lot of slasher films, but I can't really completely say that because Michael Myers is kind of a slasher film. So, but I like the classic slasher films, but I also like Scream because it's nostalgic for me. When Scream came out, I was in college. Or getting ready to be in college at the time, and it could be considered kind of cheesy, but on the same note, I really, really like it. I like what they have done with that franchise with these newer movies of Scream. Of course, it helps that Miss Wednesday Addams, the actress who plays Wednesday Addams on Wednesday for Netflix, is in it. Jenna Ortega, I really, really like her. She is an amazing actress, and I think what she brings to the Scream franchise is awesome. I like her acting. I usually like whatever she's in. She was also on that that murderous show of You on Netflix. Not sponsored by Netflix, by the way, but I just watch a lot of Netflix. We'll just put it that way. She was on that show as well. But I love good classic horror films. I love films that are done in the classic way. I know that Rob Zombie has done horror films because he's a huge fan of horror films. Like, he loves monsters and all that stuff. Like, he actually showed his house on Cribs. You remember when that was around, and he had a lot of horror movie memorabilia, and I thought that that was really cool. So I'm like, yeah, he could totally direct a horror film, and he didn't do a half bad job. I watched it, but like, yeah, I will have to watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre, especially after the show. Because I feel like I can't do the story justice because I've never watched it. Um, but here is, and I found this on IMDb, the true story that inspired the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The true story that inspired it was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is based on real events and draws inspiration from notorious serial killers like Ed Gein and Elmer Wayne Henley. Let's go into Elmer Wayne Henley. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. Let's see. Let me just type it in because it didn't bring up what I needed it to. Elmer Wayne Henley. What did Elmer Wayne Henley do? Between 1970 and 1973, Elmer Wayne Henley Jr. helped Candyman Dean Corll kidnap, take advantage of, because I don't want to use that word, and murder at least 28 boys, 6 of whom he killed himself. So that's something else that I will be talking about on this show is Candyman. Just I don't know when. But yeah. Um, that makes a person sick. But yeah, Elmer Wayne Henley, he was a teenager at the time, and he was the accomplice of the Candyman. Um, that's that's really, really sad. Really, really sad. And the fact that he was 15 years old when he helped, that is insane. Um, wow. He was born May 9th, 1956, and his dad is Elmer Wayne Henley Sr., and his mom is Mary Henley, and he was born in Houston, Texas. The oldest couple's 4 sons. Henley's childhood home was an unhappy one. A lot of times that's the case for these murderers. He was violent, like his dad was violent and abusive alcoholic who took his rage out on his family. Um, his mom tried to do right by her children, and Henley Jr. was 14. She left her husband and took the kids with her, hoping for a fresh start. So he was 14 when all this went down. However, the abuse the younger Henley endured during his early life at the hands of his father would stay with him. Yes, it's a scar. He lacked a male figure in his life and who would treat him with dignity and respect, and he would end up finding this in Dean Corll. So yeah, wow. There is an interview for a 2002 documentary film. Henley said, "I needed Dean's approval. I wanted also to feel like I was man enough to deal with my father." Wow. That's really, 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 really sad. But there is the story behind Leatherface right there, and where they got the idea for Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the character of Leatherface. Like I said, I don't usually do too many slasher films, but I can see why this film has a huge fan base. I can see, the creativity behind it. I will make note and also mention, because I have talked about them on my other show, the Dark Glitter Sessions. There's a band called Ice Nine Kills, and a lot of their music is based on characters like Leatherface and Pennywise the clown from It, and they have actually for their show, they have for their stage show, they have the shower scene from Psycho. So if you like horror films and you like metal music, Ice Nine Kills is one to check out. I may even talk about them on an episode of this show. If any of you all have any suggestions of topics that you want me to cover on here, I will do my best to bring justice or to, talk about it. I will try to do a good job. And I'm sorry that I am stuttering today, and I'm sorry that I'm mispronouncing things. Like I said, my schedule is insane. I have 2 midnight shifts that I go in for, and then otherwise I work morning shifts. I'm happy I have a job, but I'm extremely tired. But I do want to continue to do this show, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. And like I said, if there is anything that you want me to talk about on this show, please let me know. I will research it. I will try to do a good job with whatever topic is at hand. And yeah, I didn't want to leave Leatherface out. I wanted to make sure to talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, even though I've not seen it. I want to include all of the horror films, and I want to include all of the types of horror films. I like psychological thrillers. I like jump scares. I like haunted history. I like documentaries. Ed and Lorraine Warren. I like learning about their lives. I like learning about all the things that they were involved in. There are like comic cons, there are horror cons that they have. So be checking your area. Look it up on Facebook. You can look it up on the internet and see when your area or a city near you is going to have HorrorCon. I know that I wanted to go and see. I wanted to go to that because there was a particular actor from a horror film that I wanted to see. The actor that played the Candyman. I wanted to see him and meet him in person because I thought that would be interesting. So yeah, they do have horror cons. You can meet actors from different movies. It would be neat to meet the actor who plays Jason Voorhees. It would be neat to meet the cast of Scream. They have had the cast of Scream at these horror cons before. And it's interesting. I don't know why I like scary movies, but I do. I know that there are some people who do not like scary movies. One of my friends is not a huge fan of scary movies, and that's understandable. It's not for everyone. Um, uh, but I think that being that I grew up in the 1980s, the 80s, that that's just kind of what I grew up on. I grew up watching Chucky and Halloween and you know Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th. Like I grew up on films like that. So to me it's kind of nostalgic. I know that sounds crazy, but it's kind of nostalgic because sometimes I would watch these films with my mom and dad. And I know, as a kid, I shouldn't have been watching these films, but my mom would always make sure to send me out of the room if a gory scene was going to happen or a scene that I really did not need to be witnessing was going to happen. And it was kind of funny because I would always be like, Mom, did Freddy Krueger die in that film? Like, did he die? He didn't come back, did he? And my mom would always have to tell me, yes, he died. He's dead. He's not going to come back. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I turned out okay. I'd like to think I turned out okay. But I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And like I said, there's going to be a special Halloween episode exclusively on my YouTube channel of Star Raven Studios, as well as Star Raven Studios on Facebook. So you can catch it on there. And I will also re-air it on Cosmos Creative Television on one of my show days because I don't want to take over anybody else's airtime. So I have to be careful with when I show my episodes. So that's pretty much it. I hope that I did Texas Chainsaw Massacre justice. Next time I will be sure to watch the film before I do an episode of this. And next time I will be sure to get sleep. I apologize. But go check out some scary movies. 'Tis the season. It's Halloween season. And you gotta get your scary movies on. You gotta go out there and watch scary movies. I've been watching quite a few scary movies. I've been enjoying sitting back and relaxing and eating popcorn and watching my scary movies on Netflix or Amazon Prime, wherever you watch your scary movies. And yeah, until next time, stay spooky.